Hey, what's up, everyone? It is I, the man, the myth, the mustache, Tim here, with a brand new video for y'all. Welcome to part 3 of What If Deku Could Use Haki. I just wanted to greet y'all and just tell you to sit back, relax, listen to me tell a story, cause you're in for a treat. Without further delay, let's begin. Class 1A stood together in the training field, all waiting for Aizawa to explain the test. The sleep-deprived teacher looked at all of his students as he began to speak. We'll have a physical test, like the ones you've already had in middle school. The difference now is that you'll be able to use your quirks. The class seemed to be surprised by this, as they began talking amongst themselves. The chatter died quickly, as Aizawa spoke once more. Midoriya? He simply called out. Midoriya walked out of the crowd, with a stoic expression planted on his face. You got first place in the entrance exam. What was your farthest distance throw with a softball in junior high? Aizawa asked. Midoriya thought for a second before he answered. 70 meters, I think. All right, try doing it with your Aizawa cut himself off. The teacher scratched his frown as if he was annoyed. Then he rephrased himself. Sorry, I forgot. You don't have a quirk. Class 1A was shocked after hearing this. Many questions raced through their heads, primarily one being how someone without a quirk managed to get first place in the entrance exam. Anything goes, as long as you stay in that circle, Aizawa said before he passed a softball over to Midoriya. The green-haired boy walked into the ring and prepared himself. He had already settled on what to do, so he pulled his arm back in preparation for the throw. Midoriya took a deep breath. He infused his arm and the ball with Haki before he threw it with all of his might. The throw created a small blast of wind as the ball flew far away. Shortly after, Aizawa received a notification on his phone which marked the ball's landing. A wide grin formed on his face upon witnessing the result, which he then shared with the rest of the class. 680 meters? A boy with yellow hair shouted. How? A girl with pink skin then followed, sounding completely bewildered. No one believed that Midoriya was quirkless at this point, but at the same time, they didn't want to question him or their teacher. The entire class was getting excited and fired up. It got to the point that they began arguing about who would be next. This annoyed Aizawa, who spoke up once more. You think this is all fun and games? And everyone snapped back to attention. Today, you will compete in 8 physical tests to judge your potential. Whoever comes in last has none and will be expelled immediately. Now the entire class froze in horror. You can't expel us! It's not fair! Uraraka exclaimed, saying what many thought at that moment. Aizawa just got more annoyed. So natural disasters and power-hungry villains are? No. The world is littered with unfairness. It's a hero's job to combat that unfairness. If you want to be a pro-hero, you're gonna have to push yourself to the brink. So go beyond, plus ultra style. The teacher said, and no one dared to talk back. The tests rolled on as they were meant to, with everyone trying their absolute damnedest. Midoriya was racing against Bakugo in the 50-meter dash, where Bakugo's explosions made him just 1/10 of a second faster. In the standing long jump, Midoriya managed to reach the end of the sandpit. Midoriya then got a decent result on both the grip strength and the repeated sidesteps. This continued for every test. Midoriya got decent results, and was always short of the highest score. This was also shown in the final results, when it was shown that Midoriya was placed just behind Bakugo. The results acted as a way of relief for most of the class. They were all relieved over not being in last place, except for one boy with purple balls for hair. The bald-haired boy shook nervously. He looked as if he was about to both cry and scream at the same time. Midoriya, along with some of the other classmates, gave the boy a look of sympathy for his loss. By the way, no one's going home. It was all a logical ruse to make you give it your best, Aizawa said with a grin. Most of the class froze and jumped from their terrible nerves, while the bald-haired boy practically cheered and roared in happiness. Everyone calmed down after a few seconds as Aizawa dismissed the class. The day ended peacefully, with Midoriya, Ida, and Uraraka meeting up to walk to the train station together. Hey, Midoriya, why does Bakugo call you Deku? Uraraka asked, seemingly out of the blue. Midoriya was surprised by the question, and he even blushed a little. Kacchan just calls me that to make fun of me, but I honestly stopped caring a while ago, Midoriya answered with a calm voice. Ida went on some rant about how Bakugo wasn't being very sportsmanlike, but Midoriya and Uraraka barely heard any of it. Well, I like Deku. It would make a great hero name, Uraraka said with a motivating voice. Midoriya smiled deeply at this. It was the first time that anyone had ever tried to make that nickname sound good, and it made him happy to hear this. All right, you can call me Deku if you want, Midoriya responded, a smile still on his face. Uraraka smiled back, and the three students walked their way to the train station. The next day was pretty uneventful. It consisted of normal classes, and the students started to get used to the school. Eventually, the final class of the day came up. It was hero training, which the students were all excited about. I am here! A proud and booming voice announced from the now open door. Everyone turned to look and saw none other than All Might dashing through the doorway. The class was excited as All Might began to speak. All right, class, it's time for the most important class in Hero Course. You could call it Heroing 101, and today we'll be doing battle training. Everyone cheered in even more excitement when All Might uttered these words. All Might then pulled out a red button as he said, But first, there's another important part about being a hero, and that is looking good. When All Might pushed the button, the wall in the classroom opened to reveal 20 suitcases, all holding the students' hero costumes. The class got out of their seats and grabbed their respective suitcases excitedly before heading out. The students all gathered after just a few minutes. Upon arriving, they complimented each other about their hero costumes. Midoriya's costume consisted of a green jacket with a hood that had bunny-like ears. He also had white gloves that covered most of his lower arms. After the chatter quieted down, All Might proceeded to explain the exercise. There would be 2 teams, one villain team and one hero team. The villain's job is to protect a hidden weapon, while heroes are supposed to capture it. The heroes win if they either secure the weapon or capture the villains. The villains win by either protecting the weapon or capturing the heroes. After the exercise was fully explained, teams were made and drawn. The first round had Midoriya and Uraraka as the heroes, against Bakugo and Ida as the villains. Both teams were then sent on their way, villains being given time to prepare before the exercise started. Midoriya and Uraraka stood outside and waited. They were both studying the layout of the building until Uraraka asked a question. So, what is your relationship with Bakugo? This question caused Midoriya to jump a little, since it caught him off guard. He recovered himself and answered. We're childhood friends. But then he started bullying me. He's been acting strange recently. I think he believes that I'm hiding something from him. Uraraka only nodded at this, but Midoriya was stuck in thought. He had a feeling that Bakugo was suspicious of him, and he thinks that it might be because of what happened when they were 4. If not for Rayleigh's words, he definitely could have pretended that his Haki was his quirk, but Midoriya had to do his best to keep it hidden. Bakugo probably thought that it was a quirk, and that Midoriya had kept it hidden from him. Midoriya's train of thought was broken when Uraraka nudged him on the shoulder. She looked either confused or concerned, but Midoriya didn't give much of an expression. I'm sorry for dragging you into this, he said, sounding a little sorry. Uraraka didn't seem to care, though. It's okay, we're a team after all. Midoriya could feel some tension leave his body as he smiled back at her. Heroes, you may enter the building! All Might announced through the intercoms. Midoriya didn't enter the building immediately. Instead, he closed his eyes and began searching. After a second, he located where exactly the bomb was. by finding the two flickering spirits of Ida and Bakugo. Uraraka looked at Midoriya confused as he opened his eyes once more. "I found the bomb. I'll distract Kacchan while you sneak by and try to secure it," Midoriya said, voice being completely stoic once again. Uraraka was shocked over the fact that Midoriya claimed to have found the bomb already, as she nodded in agreement to the plan. The two then entered the building. They carefully tread through the halls, observing every turn and corner as they walked by. It was quiet and empty, until Midoriya sensed something aggressive approaching them. Midoriya quickly threw Uraraka to the side as he raised his arm while coating it with the Haki. From around the corner came Bakugo with a fiery explosion, but it was immediately blocked by Midoriya. The green-haired boy then grabbed the blonde boy by the arm before he threw him across the hallway. Uraraka took this opportunity to sneak by, setting the newly established plan into motion. Bakugo growled and grunted like a wild animal as he stood back up and faced Midoriya. "How long have you been hiding that power, Deku?" The blonde roared in anger. Midoriya didn't flinch after hearing this, as he answered, "What does it matter to you?" Bakugo just got angrier and angrier, before he said, "Don't you dare think you're better than me! I'm gonna crush you!" Midoriya was just as untouched as before. He calmly raised his fists into a stance before he said, "Come and get me then." Bakugo got even more furious as he charged towards Midoriya. Uraraka ran straight to the floor that the bomb was on. She snuck over to the entrance of the room, but her cover was blown when she laughed at Ida's dedication to his role as villain. "Uraraka, is that you?" Ida called out, his voice sounding as evil and villainous as he could manage. Uraraka realized that her cover had been blown, so she revealed herself to Ida. "So, Midoriya is fighting Bakugo, eh? That is just too bad for you. I've removed every item in this room, so there's nothing for you to use your quirk on. Ha 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 ha!" Ida said, sounding more villainous than ever. Uraraka barely listened as she tried to make a break for it. She sprinted towards the bomb, then she jumped and made herself float towards it. Ida wasn't willing to lose so easily, so he picked the bomb up and sprinted with it to the other side of the room. Uraraka ended up crashing and tumbling onto the ground instead. "I can easily keep the weapon out of your reach until time runs out, hero! While that was going on, the fight between Midoriya and Bakugo kept on raging. The two danced violently, toe-to-toe, both dodging and delivering blows. Midoriya used his observation to see any oncoming attacks, so that he could either dodge or counter. At the same time, he was using armament on his fists to deliver heavier punches. The dance went on for a little longer, with Bakugo suffering much more damage than Midoriya. The green-haired boy eventually managed to grab Bakugo by the wrist before delivering a heavy blow to his gut. Bakugo was sent hurtling backwards before he crashed into the ground. The blonde didn't seem like he was going to move for a while, so Midoriya took this opportunity to check on Uraraka. "Uraraka, what's your status?" Midoriya asked over the comms. It was silent for a while until he got a response. "I can't get past Ida!" she shouted. The smallest hint of anger managed to sneak onto Midoriya's expression as he replied, "Hang on! I'm coming!" Midoriya couldn't hear any form of response from Uraraka, for he noticed something happening. He turned his gaze back to the other end of the hallway and saw that his blonde opponent had stood back up on trembling legs. Midoriya got back into a stance and prepared for an attack, but an attack never came. Bakugo was just standing there, as if he was waiting, until something clicked in one of his grenade gauntlets. "I think you know how my quirk explosion works. I secrete nitroglycerin like sweat and make it blow up. These gauntlets right here collect all of my sweat for future use, and now they're completely full," Bakugo said with a menacing glare as he held one of his fingers around the pin. All Might shouted into the comms for Bakugo to not use it, but the blonde didn't listen and pulled the pin. Midoriya crossed his arms in front of his face with no intention of dodging this attack. A massive fireball was fired from the end of the gauntlet, both shaking and burning the entire building. The hallway was filled with smoke, and All Might began to panic for Midoriya to answer over the comms. But no matter how much he screamed, the green-haired boy didn't respond. All Might was completely distraught, and as he was about to call the exercise off, he saw something move in the smoke. He stopped himself and waited for the dust to clear. What he saw shocked not only him, but everyone that bore witness. Midoriya was still standing there, arms crossed, as if nothing had happened. Some sort of black aura was covering his forearms, which didn't seem to have a single scratch on them. He then lowered his arms, showing the exact same cool expression that he held before the blast. Bakugo was suddenly gripped by fear. How could someone survive that? And how could he do it without suffering any type of damage? Midoriya cracked his neck once, before he looked at Bakugo and said, "Let's end this, shall we?" He then dashed across the hall until he stood right in front of Bakugo. The blonde didn't dare to do anything, until Midoriya knocked him out by chopping him in the neck. Having finished his battle with Bakugo, Midoriya went on his way to help Uraraka, but right as he was about to walk, All Might announced, "Hero Team wins!" Midoriya was confused, until he used his observation to see that Uraraka was standing next to the bomb. The massive explosion must have distracted Ida long enough for Uraraka to secure the victory. Bakugo was carried out on a stretcher, while the other three reunited at the entryway before heading over to the monitor room. There, Midoriya was overwhelmed by questions from his classmates. They all wondered where he learned to fight, how he survived that fireball, and if he really was quirkless. Midoriya's expression grew a little awkward as he tried to answer all of them. "My master Rayleigh taught me everything that I know. I used one of the techniques he taught me to survive that fireball. And yes, I am quirkless," he said, both lying and telling the truth at the same time. The exercise continued as it should have with the other teams. Everyone showed off some incredible feats, but one stood out more than anyone else. It was someone with an ice quirk, who won within seconds by freezing the entire building. Midoriya made a mental note to keep an eye on this individual, for he was very strong. The day then went on as normal. The students finished up whatever needed to be finished before they headed home. Midoriya met up with both Ida and Uraraka so they could walk to the station together. They were talking about the events that had transpired that day and how fun it was. What they didn't know was that someone was watching them from a distance. More specifically, he was watching Midoriya. He couldn't wrap his head around it. How could Midoriya have gotten so strong out of nowhere? What happened? The observer clenched his fist and gritted his teeth in frustration at the thought, while trying to make sense of it all. "Damn it, Deku!" the observer grunted, as his gaze locked itself onto the pavement below. And that is our video, so thank you all for indulging yourselves in the story thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, there are a few more things I'd like to go over before the video ends. First, we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes over the hard facts and lore of a wide variety of animes. It's sure to expand your weeb knowledge for all kinds of series, guaranteed. On top of that, we have a third channel called We the Celestials Naruto What Ifs. It's what we do on this channel already, but in the vast world and lore of Naruto. Go check it out if you're in the mood for some jutsu action! Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I want to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, then I would like to extend an invitation to join the team. Our only caveat is that we accept members who are 16 years old or up to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interests by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. Our Discord is an all-around fantastic place to be, whether you be a fan or looking to join our band of misfits. We're always looking for members to join us. And with that, that's it for today's video. So thank you all for watching, and once again, have a fantastic day!